Howdy, friends. We're back for another league coverage game. This was a playoff game that was played on Saturday. This is kind of the tier two of the playoff games. So the person that won this one is going to face off against the three non-winners from kind of the tier one game. So just looking at it right off the bat, spoiler alert: Drosig won. I haven't looked at the game, but I'm going to go through the whole thing. But you can see they had the GT, and I can already look and see that they had the Big Four because they're the only token in Indianapolis, and they also had the CNWI. So keep an eye on that. That's the Grand Trunk starting way up here in Port Huron is pretty lackluster without extra tokens. But being able to secure this run and then potentially looking at other runs as the game progresses makes for a pretty good day for the GT. So let's go on back. I'm just going to click right to the end of the first stock round. So, or rather, I guess I should go to the initial stock round. We can look at it quick. So no O&I, no Little Miami, no Boomtown, no Meatpacking. So we've got the Steamboat Company in here, which is very, very good, of course, very powerful. We've got Lakeshore Line, also very powerful. Michigan Central has its uses, but oftentimes feels like a trap to me. And then the Tunnel Blasting Company, or the Unnel Blasting Company. We'll just call it the TBC. So looks like the mail contract went for 50, and How 49 got that. This is where I want to be right here. Stock round one. That's the way of it. Okay, cool. So we can look down here and see where everyone's at. So Juicy Berry first to go. Tunnel Blasting Company, Michigan Central. How 49, Lakeshore Line Mail Contract. River Fiend, Steamboat Company, Michigan Southern. This is an incredibly powerful combination, very potent. You can use the Michigan Southern with the Steamboat Company. Steamboat Company says you can assign it to a company, so that basically just means, hey, if you have a miner that works with it, you can assign it to that miner. And then Drosig last to pick with the CNWI and the Big Four, as already outlined. Again, I could tell that just by looking at the game. So how'd we do here? We took the B&O first at 100, NYC also at 100, Illinois Central at 90, and then Drosig with 240 takes the GT at 80. So kind of looking at the money distribution here, we've got some interesting stuff, right? Obviously the Illinois Central player with the Michigan Southern, pretty powerful, but generally we like to see the kind of first player to pick get the Illinois Central, but you can see River Fiend was the third one to go here. So fortunate for them. But I guess if you don't have any kind of a teleport, you can't really take the Illinois Central. Really tough to win without some kind of a way to get across the map. So River Fiend predictably, going to go ahead with the Michigan Southern and do Steamboat things. Big Four pointing toward Indianapolis, pointing to Indianapolis kind of straight ahead. Interesting. I probably would have went to Louisville or something like that. And we've got this kind of loop here, which is interesting. I haven't seen much of that before. But Drosig, a very good player. I'm sure they have some kind of method to their madness. River Fiend sort of doing the predictable thing and just heading right to St. Louis from Cairo. Cairo. I understand that in Egypt they pronounce it Cairo, but in Cairo they pronounce it Cairo. So never been there. I'd like to go someday. A couple trains bought. GT also just bought 2 trains. Pretty predictable start here for these folks. The B&O, kind of tricky, right? The B&O is not much better without a teleport than the IC is, frankly. You've got a lot of difficult terrain to fight through over here coming out of Wheeling. You've got these rivers, you've got the mountains to get through. When I say these rivers, I just mean that this is the Ohio River, right? That they have to get across, and mountains on the other side of it. So pretty tough stuff. Looks like the NYC is going to be the one getting kind of the big trains here. Okay, B&O goes ahead and purchases a 4 train right off the bat, so kind of max issue, lots of money floating around. They do have the tunnel blasting company, which will help fight through these mountains, but I'm still predicting they're going to have a really tough start. We'll see how that goes, i.e. not being able to really run their trains effectively. NYC making a beeline for kind of the Toledo zone, and that should be pretty good for them. You'd think that they would be able to, since they parred so high, they're running second after the B&O, they'd be able to probably get that Toledo token, which would throw a wrench into everyone's plans, right? Apparently they didn't do that because we already looked and saw that the game ended up a little bit differently, with a token for the Illinois Central and the GT in Toledo. Toledo, of course, being kind of a vital crossroads. So GT heading back up toward their Chicago and Western Indiana token in Chicago. I don't like that, to be frank. I don't see a connection there. I think that this could have been done better some other way, perhaps. So the B&O getting a teleport into Cincinnati, very expensive. Not purchasing the tunnel busting company and teleporting into Cincinnati, but they're still not going to be able to run all 3 of their trains. They're going to have a pretty lackluster run here between Wheeling and Cumberland, and not much going on here either. So kind of a tough start. I mean, you're looking at Wheeling 10 plus 20. Ugh, wow. Cincinnati not a whole lot better. I mean, initially I was thinking that they had the Little Miami here, but they don't. It wasn't in the game, so going to be a tough run for them. They're not even going to make. Oh, I guess they did get their. Maybe I'm confused here. Did they? They received a discount of $20 for laying this tile, and then how did this get here? Did they go there last time? They teleported last time, and I just wasn't paying attention. They must have. I didn't realize that. So, okay. So, yeah, they're going to get through all 3 of their trains, and it's not as bad as I thought. It's 30, 30, 30, 20. So that's 110 right there, and then another 60. So 170, but still not a double jump. But pretty effective use of it here. And the tunnel blasting company worked out pretty well, and they'll be able to buy in their Michigan Central after they run. So still not a double jump, though. All that effort, all that money spent, right? Upgrades and expensive teleports and tiles and more tiles, and still we don't have a double jump. They'll be looking okay going into the stock round. I don't remember who finished second here. I just remember that Drosig, the GT player, won. So Howe, with only $70 left, can't get a token in Toledo. See, they blocked Howe. Pretty clever, pretty smart heads-up play by those players. And they're going to choose to connect down to Cincinnati. Okay. Yeah, this I don't like. This I would have upgraded Erie for sure, because that's the only token you have on the board, and that goes from 10 up to 30. And you can also take advantage of... they had the Lakeshore line to upgrade Cleveland. That makes sense. Okay. So if you upgrade Cleveland to 50 and you upgrade Erie to 30, you can eke a double jump out of this. Well, they're still going to get a double jump. Okay, they're running for 200, but only 40 for 1 train. I guess it's, kind of 6 and 1 on the other, but not really, because it'd be 80, 80, and 30. Or I'm sorry, 50, 30, and 30 is 110, so they'd be running for 220 otherwise if they'd done the thing. They're only getting a double jump because they have the mail contract, which is giving them another 40. I mean, it's tough. It's a tough call. I still think that the line I was taking was better, but they're also kind of laying track for the B&O player, which is good. Sometimes the enemy of my enemy is my friend. you can see sort of the Illinois Central player and the GT player are kind of inadvertent track building partners. They certainly have blocked the NYC from getting in. So, I mean, maybe if you can help prop up the B&O a little bit, the B&O can lay some track for you. Um, you guys can kind of be friendly toward one another and at least keep the game from being a runaway, right? Because if the other players are getting east to west bonuses and you're not, that can be a really tough position. So, okay, I like it. How's a great player as well. No doubt about that. So I would have taken a different line, but their line is fine. I think we could have made a little bit more doing it the other way. It would have been 250 instead of just 200. Every dollar counts in this game, that's for sure. But at least they got the double jump. It looks like the GT player. So interesting here. I certainly would have issued some shares earlier, at least one, but probably all of them. I would think. Let's see what Drosig does. Yeah, I'm gonna issue two. Okay, you're obligated to put a token here in Toledo, I believe, right? Wow, that's kind of a funky tile. Interesting. Oh, they put a token in Detroit instead. Huh, man, I'm all out of sorts here. I don't know what's happening. They buy in the big four. They only got 125 left. Interesting. See, I didn't see this coming at all. They bought in their CNWI and they didn't place the token. I guess it's not really necessary. No one else can come and lay a token there, but I would have went straight across and I would have taken pains to ensure that I could get a 3-5 here. So I'd have 3 2s and a 3-5, and I'd be running an east to west bonus almost certainly in the next round. So they get a double jump too, though, off their 2 trains because of the generous track lay by the IC in Detroit, connecting over to Windsor. So pretty interesting start here so far. I'm not sure I would have taken the same line as any of these players, to be frank. I think they all probably parred very well. They probably all did, more or less, and chose the companies I would have chosen, etc. The CNO and the Erie kind of being the bottom of the barrel. I do think the GT is generally better than the B&O. So maybe the B&O player should have taken the GT, but without the extra tokens, it's kind of rough. It's kind of rough. You end up having a pretty good early game and then sort of struggle in the late game, especially if there's a lot of competition for Chicago, which frankly there usually is. So I'm going to skip forward to the next spot here, and then we'll just look and see who bought what shares. So we've got Juicy Berry floating the Erie right out of the gate, and River Fiend jumping on and buying a share of a company that's not going to pay anything for the first half of the operating round. That's interesting. Juicy Berry, technically with 6 shares, but 3 of those shares aren't going to pay anything, and maintaining the 3 shares in their B&O. Howe picking up an IC share and a GT share, and River Fiend having 1 investor only in their Illinois Central, which to me seems like, the belle of the ball here. So pretty interesting. Drosig only picking up one kind of investor. So, and also getting a share of the B&O, which is pretty good. Lots of track, but yeah, shenanigans. Wow, this is an interesting game. I'm liking it a lot. I can't wait to see the development here. So, Howe kind of continues the effort. It looks like they could have gotten into. No, they couldn't have. Yeah, they could have gotten into Toledo and cut off the GT here if they would have just laid this upgrade. Which I think there's an upgrade here for this one. Maybe there's not. Maybe that was the plan. I'm not really sure. I should know that. I'm relatively certain that there is a tile that gets you into Toledo. Somebody let me know in the comments if there was a tile that gets the NYC into Toledo. We see still no upgrade for our lone station in Erie. So a lot of revenue potential there, right? You're counting that twice, 2 trains, and only as a 10 instead of a 30. But they do get Third train, presumably. Nope, don't get the train. Okay, got $185. I was thinking they'd buy another train with that extra cash. So I guess same thing, right? The B&O spent 60 on this tile right here to cross the river. I guess maybe no one could get into Toledo with the way that was. Interesting, because they might have wanted it too, right? If there was a way to pop in there. So we can assume more than likely that there wasn't a way to get in. So looking at the Illinois Central, they're going to start heading down toward Cincinnati, I guess. Interesting. So nobody wants to go to Chicago, even with a 3-5 and kind of a guaranteed run for the Illinois Central. That's what I would have done. I would have made a run across there and tried to get that early east to west run if I could. But they're still running for 380, which is kind of a monster run at this stage of the game. So I'm looking at Drosig, and there's one train left, which to me seems like benevolence, right? Like these other players had the opportunity, presumably, to purchase it. Certainly the NYC did. And if the GT doesn't get green phase train, which is the best train in the game, frankly, can Drosig win? I would assume not. There's one green phase train left. These, for the money you have to spend to get them, are a tremendous return on investment. A lot of times a 4 will run for something very similar to a 4-6, but it's the 4-6 is like 2.5 times the cost, right? And the green phase trains last, basically as long as the brown phase trains. I mean, the browns are permanent, so you might get 1 run or 2 runs out of them extra, but even after they rust, the green phase trains, you still get to run them again. So there's no such thing as a poison green phase train in this game. Like in 1830, you have that poison 4. No one wants to buy that last 4 train to open up the permanent 5s for the next player. In this game, those green phase trains are just fantastic, So certainly, I would think the GT kind of has to buy it here if they're going to have a chance at winning this game. Tons of money, tons of dough. They've got 160. Oh, they were able to get their treasury shares back in. That's probably what did it. Maintaining, or maintaining, as I said in my last video, maintaining that level of treasury shares is just like bonkers, having 5, really, really good. You can see the Illinois Central also has 5 treasury shares, and the NYC with 4. I mean, so everybody's sort of has a pretty robust treasury this game. All right, let's buzz through this a little bit. So the Erie now has no train to buy. This is why kind of floating a second company early can be really risky. You're going to have to buy a train down from your other company, your other corporation, I should say, and he's kind of Juicy Berry, sort of short on available capital, right? And when someone buys that next phase train, which is, I guess it could be kind of a long ways off, right? The Illinois Central and the GT are both train locked. NYC isn't there and can't really raise additional capital by issuing shares. So maybe things will be okay. I don't know. Certainly it'll come up the board with these extra tokens, right? Oh, wow, I didn't notice that NYC got token out of Cleveland. So with this already being upgraded, it's going to be tough for them to find really good and meaningful routes until we get to the brown phase. That's interesting. No teleport for them, of course. Now we see Erie get upgraded, of course, because that's the only thing we can upgrade. Man, what a drag, huh? Probably that player should have seen that Erie had been floated and that they were at risk of being cut off from the outside world. All right, buzzing through it here. I would say that these are very atypical track lays, very atypical starts. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 track lays, where 1, 2, 3 track lays would have done it. So that's interesting, right? We're kind of like a whole turn and quite a lot of money behind where we could be otherwise potentially. Um, Pretty neat. I mean, you love to see it. Some unconventional things. One of the things about 1846 is, if you play it a lot, it gets kind of, repetitive, right? You see the same kind of things, right? People are optimizing. Okay, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to go this way. There's sort of this sort of prescripted, you know, prescribed, this prescribed sort of best way to get to Chicago. And if you're going through Toledo, it's boop right across, But we elected to kind of dip down for whatever reason, and it ends up working out. I'm sure it looks like they're going to get that east to west bonus right now, which is great. Going to capitalize on their steamboat with multiple trains. We've still got a token left to place somewhere. So GT not quite getting that east to west bonus. Erie going to the far side of the world over there. Now, the Erie player, of course, is the same as the B&O player. So if they put a token in this last slot, well, then they've now tokened out their B&O, which is not good. But I don't know what they're doing with this this one choo-choo here. Only running for $80. They're really far from getting another train. So, Howe kind of being a share behind Juicy Berry, but Juicy Berry shares, I guess everybody's a share behind Juicy Berry, but Juicy Berry shares are not that great. So share density is important, but the quality of your shares matters too. So it's almost like the B&O Erie have kind of spread themselves a little thin with their different trains. NYC's been, effectively blocked out of getting, big runs with their two trains. And the only people that aren't really blocking each other or interfering with each other or, kind of stunting themselves or being stunted are the IC and the GT. So pretty interesting stuff here. Looks like the Illinois Central is suffering, for lack of a better word, from too many investors, and that's probably why River Fiend didn't win the game. Not having these treasury shares means that you're often going to struggle in the late game to afford multiple trains. You might have to half pay, maybe even do a withhold, whereas the GT, these shares at 124 are just going to keep appreciating. Juicy Berry's got one more share coming to them as well. So River Fiend setting themselves up, they could get this this broke company dumped on them, which would be, I think, a terrible position to be in. Okay, so yeah, this Erie, pretty rough, right? Max you can get from your treasury shares, but this B&O has 4 treasury shares at 124. I know that there's a lot of shares in the market, but this seems like a stronger long-term company than Erie does. It has a green face train. I think better track, right? We've got our token in Cleveland. It just seems like that's probably a stronger one as the game progresses. So I probably would have held on to B&O or invested in B&O and left Erie aside. But it is cheap, I guess. So there's something said for that. But anyways, let's pop in. It looks like everyone's bought the shares they're going to buy. We've got 7 shares across the board, but 8 for River Fiend, and of course 2 of those are in this kind of not very thrilling Erie, right? Not going to pay a lot. River Fiend with only 50% of their presidency and all of their shares sold out. So you'll see as this progresses, certainly, Howe is not going to have any issues at all getting big trains. Really good buy probably to invest in this mail contract as the game progresses, but here we are, and still 3 treasury shares for the GT as well. So, all right, so we got to get to the brown phase in order for Cleveland to get the upgrade. So you saw Erie issued all their shares and withheld and was able to buy the first brown face train. NYC also has a brown face train, a 4.6. And because the Illinois Central rather ran first, it didn't get any brown face trains yet. But there's only one left, so we're looking at the market. IC is going to go first. They're certainly, going to purchase that last brown face train, right? And maybe just maybe on a withhold or something, or half pay get probably have to be a full withhold, I would think, in order for them to have a shot at the getting the gray as well. So interesting. Back into the stock round. How 49 has $382, 1,600 net worth. Riverfiend with 545 off of some big payouts from the Illinois Central. Of course, NYC had a half pay there. Half pay at the last. So pretty tough stuff. Drosig with 650 in cash, right? They're going to be cashing in on some extra shares, I think, this time around. And GT, 180. That's only 540 for their their treasury shares. But if they don't get bought out, things can manifest themselves a little bit later too. But let's go ahead. I'm going to fast forward through the stock round, and then we can just kind of go back one space here and look and see how everyone came out. So Drosig with 11 shares, Riverfiend also with 11 shares. Of course, two of them still in this Erie, this one train Erie. Another thing about Erie, it only having one train, it's also got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stops, to get that kind of east to west bonus. Same thing with, B&O, but of course B&O is hopefully going to connect through this G17, very expensive tile, and then maybe both of them will have a decent 5 going across. It seems like an okay plan. Being Pittsburgh, Wheeling, 2, Cincinnati, 3, and then Chicago connections. So kind of tough. B&O, we're thinking almost certainly not going to get a brown face train here because they ran later in the order. But let's pop in and see how this goes. So you can see the upgrade on D8. Finally, we're making a kind of direct connection to Chicago, and we do see our first it was a full withhold for 520 with the IC and our first gray face train purchased. So the rest of us are going to have to kind of maybe scramble a little bit and figure out what we're going to do because the green face trains are going away now. We're in 4.2, so guaranteed to go 5 at least here. I didn't see how many ORs it went, but 5 is very typical. So no problem here, right? Issue some shares. We've got lots of cash to get that 6 train. Of course, we only have a 5 route, out of it. Erie not able to make this $60 connection here. So, and the best laid plans of mice and men, right? We don't have the money to. We will eventually here in the B&O because we've got a couple of treasury shares, but we don't have the money that we need to make this connection where we can get that east to west bonus. So pretty tough game in a lot of respects. Money's been really tight. A lot of big investments. There's been looking at the spreadsheet, quite a few. Half pays, withholds. Full withholds, full withhold. A lot of half pays for the B&O. Even a half pay here for the GT, of course, right, to get get into their big train land with their 6 train. Only $20 left, but looking at the entities tab, there's a pretty clear lead here for Drosig. He's kind of the one that's been half paying and withholding less than the others, which is usually something you're rewarded for a lot in this game. So we've got over 5K in the bank still. All right, let's pop through here. So we've got a 4-6 and a 6 in the New York Central. We've got a 5 and a 7-8 in the IC, a 4-6 and a 6 in the GT, and Juicy Berry with a 7-8 and a 5 between two companies. So kind of spread out. 4,000 in the bank. Looks like it's probably going to break, though. It's going to be pretty close, but it should break this OR. And we should just get 5 out of it. I don't think anyone else is buying any more trains. I think we're done there. And we already know, of course, that the CNO didn't get floated, but pretty easy to see why, because it wouldn't have anywhere to go. So we're just going to invest in the companies that are available, and yeah, the bank should break. Interesting development. I don't know that I've seen a map quite like this before. We're trying to get sort of a double east to west for some of these bigger companies. It's pretty hard to do. I don't think GT is going to get anywhere west unless that they were able to do like a Port Huron run. That's another thing some people don't know about. You can get a double east to west from here. So you can run one train from like Sarnia to Port Huron to Detroit if you have multiple tracks, right? Detroit, Toledo. You've got a track here and a track here. They don't cross, so you can use both. And then you can get down here and go like Indianapolis, and over to St. Louis. And then the other train can run like Windsor, Detroit, Toledo, straight across to Chicago. So pretty interesting stuff. Let's do our little trick again, and we'll fast forward. And then I'll go back and we can look and see what everyone purchased here. So it looks like Juicy Berry, everything's completely sold out. I was going to say they've got 272. Why didn't they buy a share? How 49, 347. Why didn't they buy a share? Because everything is sold out. No one feels like starting the CNO. But Drosig with a lead getting narrower here over the IC player over River Fiend. But they did manage to pull it out, as we know. These other players are just so far behind that there's really no way that they're going to be able to catch up. But we still have a competition here between River Fiend at 31.86 and Drosig at 32.11. You'll notice neither one of them has a token in Cleveland or in Cincinnati, so they're basically sort of cut off from this whole eastern side of the board here. And just notice I said western side earlier when I was talking about this. Obviously, this is the eastern side. So I would look to see in this scenario Port Huron get upgraded to make a double east to west, but I don't think that happens. All right, let's go ahead and click through this. So they made a loop there in Terre Haute. Who needs a H6 upgrade? Let's go down to Centralia the old-fashioned way. Upgrade to Detroit. Kind of got the double loop here. I think both these companies are too short on cash to upgrade Port Huron. No, that's not true. GT has 180. They could have done it. He just had $20 a minute ago. I don't know if did he half pay again? Yeah, he half paid in 4.2. Okay. So half pay. No trains to buy. Still half pays though. Nail contract. Just really big runs here. 720. So coming in the stretch here before GT pays out, River Fiend's considerably ahead of How's kind of catching up a little bit, I guess, with this mail contract, but no way they're going to catch him. But you can see even before the payout from the GT, Drosig is ahead, probably because of a big investment here in the New York Central, running for 720, where these other companies are only running for 590, 550. And then of course we have the lower level. Looks like Juicy Berry withheld and bought another train. I guess we're gonna maybe go 6 here. I don't know. It's interesting. I guess we are going to go 6 because we already had all these payouts. But withholding buying trains in this game, frankly just isn't very good. Typically, you lose so much in the game, even though it's going to go 6 operating rounds. It's still so short, right? And there's really no way to kind of recoup that investment. Um, you end up losing a lot more than you gain in the long run. So, um, these players with kind of big investments in B&O, it's tough. It's a tough way to go. You lose not only the dividend payment, but the share appreciation, etc. Shortest stock round ever, right? No one bought anything. There was nothing to buy. So we are going to go 6 here because of that withhold. But again, that's not going to change the outcome of the game. So first OR under our belts. Riverfiend at 7,200, but Drosig widening the gap, right? 7,600 on the back of these big runs. B&O up to 850, but again, um, the lost revenue from the missed payouts before doesn't make up for it. If the game were several hours longer, it certainly would, right? So, but in this instance, it doesn't. I do. This is maybe a good time to plug I have an 1846 expansion. It's called Barons of the Backwaters. You can find it on Board Game Geek, and it has a larger bank, and the game goes much longer. So, it's almost not viable to not maneuver and buy a second train. Whereas in this game, typically, it's hard to win if you do that, just because it is such a short game. I mean, 1846, the race for the Midwest, right? Who knew it was a short game? Very much designed that way, I think. Amazing. And there you have it. 6 ORs later, Jurosik wins quite handily. You know, pretty wide margin. Good scores all around. And Howe not able to come up and get second place over Riverfiend with his 5 and 7-8, even though he was tokened out. So it just goes to show you tokens in this game are not the end all be all. Um, you still end up with some really incredible runs, even if you don't have access to half the board essentially, right? And Port Huron never got upgraded for a double east to west, and they're still running for enough to keep them ahead of the other players. So very good game to all, and good luck to Drosig in the kind of the tier 2 championship game this weekend. Thanks for watching.